In this episode, we are going to take a look at the new image component that comes with Next.js 10, and also I'm going to show you how to add some additional data to your Strapi endpoint. Specifically in our case, that is going to be width and height of our poster image, so that we can use it in our image component, as you will see in this video. So Next.js 10 recently came out, and of course it brings along with it some of the additional features that will make your life as a developer easier. The feature that we are going to be looking today is built-in image component and automatic image optimization. You also have internationalized routing, analytics, e-commerce, React 17 support, and so on. You can read all about that on their blog, and I urge you to do that. But today we are going to be looking at this built-in image component. So why do we need a built-in image component? Because images have some problems. So first of all, images take up 50% of the total bytes of the web page. They impact the largest contentful paint, which is actually a score that Google is going to be using very soon when ranking your page. Half of the images on the websites are over 1 megabyte, and as you probably know, clients don't care about image sizes. They just put any kind of images they have from their phone, from wherever, and those images tend to be very large. Also, sites can load images that are 2000 by 2000 pixels, but on the phones they will just display images that are, I don't know, 100 by 100 pixels in dimensions. So furthermore, 30% of the images on the web pages are outside of the initial viewport, which means they are loaded, but they don't need to be. So image component out of the box has lazy loading, so only the images in your viewport will be seen, and once you scroll down the page, all the additional images will be loaded as you scroll. And the images often don't have width and height property, which is causing them to jump around when the page is loaded, and this hurts the cumulative layout shift called Web Vital. So in Next.js, width and height property, as you will see, are required properties, so you always have to add it to your image tag, actually your image component. So of course you will read the documentation, and you can go to this page, so image component and image optimization, which will guide you through this process a little bit and show you how to configure your images in nextconf.js file, which we are going to be doing in this episode. And also you can take a look at the image component and its props. So it has some required props, which, as I said, are source, of course, because you need to provide an image, and width and height. You have optional props for layout, for sizes, for quality, for priority. Be sure to read this because we are not going to go through all of those in this video. Then you have some advanced props like object fit, object position, and loading. And you have other props. So any other prop that you would add to your image component is going to be passed down to the underlying image tag. The three of them that you cannot use, you can't use style, you have to use class name instead. You can't use source set, you need to use device sizes instead, and you can't use decoding because decoding is always going to be async. Okay, so this is the intro to this. I urge you to read everything about it because we are not going to be covering everything in this video, just some of the features that you will usually be using in production. So let's just take a look how this works, and also, as I said at the beginning of this video, we are going to have to add some additional data to Strapi, width and height, to be actually able to use image component with the images coming from our Strapi backend. So before we begin, we need to bring our Next.js application to the newest version, which as of the recording of this video is 10.03. So just change this in your package.json file, 10.03. Because, as I said at the beginning of this video, image component comes with Next.js 10. Okay, save this, and of course we just run npm install. Once this is done, we just run our application, so npm run dev. Once our server has started, let's just open up our application to see if it works. I'm going to refresh this page. And okay, everything is working. I just added the 2 movies inside of Strapi so that I can show you easily lazy loading. So I just added the image for Fight Club and for Ghostbusters, the movie, and that's about it. So next thing I want to do before we actually add some images, I'm going to, let me put this to be 360. So I'm going to remove navigation and remove language switcher because it's screwing up my responsive view. So let's just go to our code editor, or we go to the header, and I'm just going to comment this out. Save it, check the page again. And now, as you can see, this looks much better because we don't have anything up here. Okay, so this is our preparation. Let's just now add an image with an image component. So to use image component, first of all, we of course have to import it. You import image from next image. Okay, so as I said, image component has few required props. Those props are src. We are going to call an image that I saved in my public folder under images. It's called chewy.jpg. So you just do images, chewy.jpg. Next, we need to add a width and height. Those are also required props. So width is going to be 2400 and height is going to be 1600. And that's about it. That's all you need to display an image. A layout for this image can be fill, right? Fill, or it can be responsive, or it can be intrinsic. Now, intrinsic is turned on by default, so we are going to leave it at that, but you can also use responsive if you want your images to load different version of the images once the viewport starts going up. Intrinsic is going to just display original images on the larger viewports, but on the smaller viewports it should display a smaller image. Should, as I said, because I didn't see this working very well while playing around with this. I don't know why that is. If you put an image outside of any other component, then those sizes do actually get loaded. But if you put it inside of a container or inside of another component, that doesn't seem to happen for some reason. But I'm not very worried about that because of this. So let's just save this, check it out. And as you can see, we get this image of this dog. However, if we take a look at that image in our code editor, you can see that the image is 251 kilobytes in size. Okay, so it's a pretty large image. But if we go to our browser and you open up a network tab in your developer tools, refresh this page, you can see, so we have this image right here. This is our image called with an image component. If we open it up in a new tab, you can see that that's the image of that dog. However, take a look at this. The image size is only 86 kilobytes, not 251 kilobytes. And also one more thing that you can see is that it uses WebP format, not JPEG format. This is because Next.js or image component is going to detect which browser you are using and if that browser supports WebP format. If it does, it's going to serve the image in that format because WebP is much more performant than JPEG. So right out of the box, even if this image size is actually not changing while you're stretching your viewport for some reason, maybe I misunderstood how this should work, but it doesn't change the sizes in all of the tests that I did. If somebody knows a little bit more about this, please let me know in the comments. But as I said, even if this does not work, your image is more than half of its original size in kilobytes. You can of course control this by using the quality prop which you can define a number between 0 and 100, and the default is 75. So I think 75 is pretty okay, so we don't want to mess around with that. So this is the most basic usage of the image tag. Next thing we want to do, we actually want to get images from our backend, right? Because this right now does not work very well for us, because most of our images, and at least for this application, are going to come from our Strapi backend as a poster, right? If you take a look at the card.js component, we are calling an image right here, and that image is the property of movie poster. We are getting the URL of that image, so we are calling most of our images from our Strapi backend. So we need to actually implement image component right here, and we are going to be doing that in just a second. Okay, so now let's add image component to our card so that we can display our poster. Okay, so first of all, we need to import image from Nextjs. Great. Now we need to change this to be image, not EMG, a tag. SRC is actually okay. And as I said a few times already, we have some required props, which is width. And we can put this to be 500 and height to be 500. It doesn't matter for now. It doesn't matter because if we take a look at our response, this is a movie's response. And as you can see right here, we don't have image width and height. So for now, we are just going to use 500 by 500. And later in this video, we are going to actually add image width and height because we need those properties for this to work correctly, right? Okay, so movie poster doesn't have width and height. We hard-coded it. Next thing, we are going to run into another problem because we can't just call the image from another source just like this, right? So if I save this, go to my browser, take a look at this, we will get an error. So invalid SRC prop, blah, blah, blah. Next image hostname localhost is not configured under images in your next.config.js file. Okay, so we need to add some configuration to our next.config.js file for this to work. So let's do that right now. So to configure images inside of your next.config.js file, you do images. So first of all, we are going to define device sizes. And then we are going to define image sizes. So device sizes are your breakpoints. So the breakpoints for our application, I added these. You don't have to add them. Next.js is going to use some defaults if you don't add them right here. But these should usually be the breakpoints that you are using in your application, your CSS breakpoints, right? So the image sizes are actually sizes that you can use with layout fixed and layout intrinsic, which I don't fully understand what this does. So I'm not going to try to explain it, what these image sizes are actually going to do. Because this is not very clear to me. So you can specify a list of image widths using the image sizes property. These widths should be different, usually smaller than widths defined in device sizes, because the arrays are concatenated. These widths are used with next image component that uses layout equals fix or layout intrinsic. And that's about it. So I don't know what this does. I really don't. So I'm not going to try to explain that to you. We are just going to define them and be on our merry way. Next thing, we are just going to define some of the default stuff. So the path is going to be next image and the loader is going to be default. What actually interests us and what is important for this video is something called domains. So these are going to be the domains that you can serve images from. And you would define a domain with something like domain.com, right? Or localhost 1337 and so on. So of course, I don't want to hard code this because when we put this on a server, this value right here should change. So we are going to define that in our .env file. So in our .env file, we are going to add another variable, which is going to be called images domain. You can call it whatever you like. I just called it images domain, and it's going to receive images from localhost, because remember, our Strapi backend, at least on our local machine, is on localhost. So you just define localhost. Of course, your env file for your production server should look a little bit different. Probably it's going to be some domain name or even a CDN. If you want to use CDN, you can read the documentation. I think it currently supports Cloudinary and ImageX or something like that. Okay, so in our next config.js file, now we are going to define those images domain. So I'm going to define it right here, and I'm going to define it right here. Okay, so we have images domain, and now here, instead of doing just hard-coded domain, I'm going to call process.env.images domain. Okay, so we set up our images domain, and now actually our images should work, but right after we restart our server, and even Next.js now tells you, found a change in next.config.js, restart the server to see the changes in effect. Okay, so we quit out of this and run npm run dev again. So as you can see, I had an error right here, and this is because I forgot to put a comma after this curly brace. So don't forget to add this right here. Okay, so let's take a look at our browser and see if those images now work. Let's refresh this page. And now, as you can see, our images work. Of course, they don't work perfectly because we set the width and height of those images to be 500 by 500. And that is not good because those images are not actually those sizes, but there are different sizes. So as you can see, they look a little bit squashed. Okay, so what we need to do right now is we need some way to add width and height to our API response. So we need to have in this movie poster, we should have width and height of an image. As of yet, we are not getting it. So how do we handle that problem? Well, first of all, we have to go to our Strapi backend, or actually to the code editor with our Strapi project. And now in our Strapi project, you go to API, movie, controllers, movie.js. So I'm in that file. We already did something in that file when we added data from the frontend. So we created this create function right here. So now we are going to create another function, which is going to be a find function. This is a function of Strapi. I'm going to open it up right here and just add this to it because most of it is very similar to what we did in create. So here we are just getting the entities that we need or items that we need. Next thing we need to do, we need to add some additional data to our API response. That is why we are using this find method, because that find method is going to be run once you hit that endpoint. And then we want to do something with it. So we want to return entities.map. Entities are just our movies. And now we want to define our movie. So we are going to do something to that movie. So to do that, you do const movie, sanitize entity. Entity is going to be model from the model of Strapi models.movie. So we are using this sanitize entity from Strapi utils, which you have right here. And we are defining our movie. So this is going to be the movie that we are going to loop through. Now we need to check if the movie has a poster or not. First of all, because some of our movies don't have a poster, and if we just do our function without that if statement, then our application is going to break because not all of the movies have posters. So you can, as you can see in this API endpoint, so if we go down here, you can see that the movie poster for this movie is null. Okay, so we can't do anything with it. So we want to check if that movie poster is not null. So you do if movie poster does not equal null. So next thing we want to do, we just want to add some data to this movie poster object. And how do we do that? Well, you just do movie you do movie poster, and then you do, for example, width, and we can add width of 200. I'm just going to hard code this for now. Next thing we need to do, we need to add height. So you do pretty much the same thing, but instead of width, you add the height. So now we added two additional properties to our movie poster object. If I save this, you need to wait a little bit for the server to restart. Let's try to refresh it. We screwed something up because we are getting this. Let me see what I screwed up. Oh yeah, we actually forgot right here to return a movie. We are not returning anything right now, so we just return a movie. Save it and wait a bit for the server to restart. So now we are getting our endpoints again, but as you can see right now in the movie poster, we have width and we have height. So all we need to do now is actually get the widths and heights of those images. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to install something called image size. So that's an npm package for use on Node.js that will get the sizes of our images. So you would just do this. So I'm going to quit out of my Strapi backend server. Let me make this a bit bigger. And you just do npm install image size. So now we are installing image size plugin on our Strapi backend. Now that this is done, you just do npm run develop. Of course, you always want to run Strapi while developing something in develop mode. So once our server has been started, we can go back to the code. Now at the top of the file, we are going to require two plugins. So the first one we are going to call size of, and we are requiring image size plugin that we just installed. And also we are requiring the path. So in our map for our entities, we are of course checking if the movie poster exists. Now we want to define the dimensions of our image. So how do we do that? We do const dimensions. And now we use that function size of, or that plugin that we called size of. Of course, you can read the documentation for all available properties that you can use with the image size plugin. But for now, only thing that we need to do, we just need to pass in the path to the image so that we can get its dimensions. Now, we can't just go like we have in our code right here and just do movie poster URL, because remember Strapi is Node.js application and it works on the server, so it won't be able to get that URL. So you have to actually define a path for it and then point it to public uploads and name of the image, of course. So to do that, we are going to use path resolve. We are going to add a dir name right here, like this. So this is going to put us right here. So in API, movie, controllers, movie.js, which of course doesn't work for us because our images are in the public folder. So we are going to add another property right here, and we are just going to say, okay, go from this directory, go a few levels up and go to the public folder. So we are going to go one more, and now we go public, and we don't need to do anything after that. Now we want to pass in the image that we are getting from our API, which is, of course, we just do plus and we do movie.movieposter.url. And that should actually be it. Now from these dimensions we are going to get an object with width and height. So what we can do, we can just go dimensions width and dimensions height, and that's it. So save this, wait a bit for the server to refresh and check it out in the browser. So I'm going to refresh this, and now this works. As you can see, now in our movie poster we get width of 675 and height of 1000. This one is 666 and 1000, and this one is 667 and 999. Okay, so we are now getting the dimensions of the images that we need to provide to our Next.js application. So the next part is of course very easy. We just use the width and height and add it to our image component. Now in our Next.js app, we just go to card.js, and here instead of hard coding our width and height, we can just do movie poster.width. And the same thing for height. And let's check out our application right now. So if I refresh this, our images now look much better. They are not squished. And as you can see, they are loading nicely. Now, a few things I want to show you before I go. So first of all, let's refresh this again and find our inception image. So take a look, this is inception. As you can see, none of the other images are loaded. We are just loading the image of this dog and the image for the inception movie. And as you can see, the size of this image is 113 kilobytes. But if we check our endpoint for the movie inception, you can see that movie poster actually provides you with the size in kilobytes for the image, and that size is 153. So we saved 40 kilobytes for this image, right? Because this one right here is 113. Okay, and the next thing is, of course, it's also a WebP image, so it's going to load up much faster. Now, what else I want to show you is what you get out of the box with the image component is that lazy loading. As I said, you can only see that only the images of the dog and the image for our inception movie are loaded. But if I scroll right now, take a look at this part of the screen. So if I scroll a little bit down, now you can see that the image for the Big Lebowski has been loaded. If I open it up in new tab, you can see that this image has been loaded right now. And it's also smaller size. This one is 58 kilobytes and Big Lebowski is 100.61 kilobytes. Right? So that is great. And also if we scroll down once again, you will see how the images are loading as we are scrolling through our application. So of course you're going to read the documentation for all of the available features and you're going to test them out. We are not going to go through all of this in this video. I just wanted to show you that you have image component now in Nextjs and that you can use it. But as you can see, there are some advanced props, there are some that are not required and so on. You can test them, play with them and see what fits your needs. I think the image component in the future is going to get better and better with time. I hope they include some options for cropping images and manipulating the images display a little bit better, because this is just the first version. We will see what will come next after that. So anyway guys, this has been it for this video. Everything we did here will be available for you on GitHub. The link will be in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.